Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Marie Rose, for the prayer. And it didn't dawn on me until just now that as she was speaking, we are in the last day of February. Mercy. How time goes by when you're having fun or not. But this morning I want to talk with you a little bit about the opportunities that God has given us. Those of you that are visiting us and have not been here for a while, or you've been here before but not recently, we have decided to adopt a verse this year out of Psalm chapter 27, verse 4, where David talks about his desire to be in the presence of the Lord, and in the presence of his, the one thing that he desired is to be in the presence of the Lord in his holy temple, to abide in it all the days of his life. So all of our sermon themes for the year are involved around that particular theme. And more specifically, this month, I've been focusing on the discipline of desire, right? We talked about a week ago, that it was Valentine's Day, or 2 weeks ago, it was Valentine's Day. And we talked about how love is a part of that. And I want to conclude this particular month with the title for this sermon is intended Mercy Over Sacrifice, a love that endures. And I want to bring your attention again to the book of John. And here, First John, this is the first letter that John writes. It states, "For this is the love of God." Notice that the Bible doesn't say, "For this is a love of God," a type of. This is the love of God. The thing that he loves the most. The thing that draws us to him. The thing that he desires of us is that we keep his commandments. Well, Pastor, wait a minute. Isn't that sending us into that line of legalism where we are required then to obey? Well, we need to look at the context of that. We need to look at the understanding of what he means by that. But then he comes and he says this right after the statement. He says, "And his commands are what? Not burdensome." Some of your translations may say they're not heavy. They're not difficult. We could spend a whole day just talking about that. But this morning I want to dwell on another perspective. A couple who were celebrating their 50th anniversary, and I can clearly say it was my parents or my in-laws because they celebrated their 50th anniversary last year. But this is not them, even though they said this. Somebody approached them and asked them, "What's the secret for such a long line of the longevity of your marriage? What did you do? What is the one secret that you can give us, that you can share with us, that is going to help us have the same type of longevity that you have?" The husband, he smiled and he said, "There were days that we didn't feel in love, but we stayed committed. And the feelings caught up with the commitment." There were days that they didn't feel like they were in love. I mean, I remember when I was first married, with my wife. And I remember waking up next to her in the very first weeks of marriage. And I would open my eyes and I would just want to go and give her a kiss. And she's like, oh, no, I need to brush my teeth. See, love, despite bad breath, morning breath, still loves that person, right? We are willing to do things that normally we're like, oh no, let me get ready. Let me freshen up, or let me make sure that I look presentable, or let me make sure that, and we start putting all of these things before the relationship. There were days that we didn't feel in love, but we stayed committed. Let me be honest, full disclosure. I love my wife, but there have been times in our 22 years of marriage that we did not fall or feel in love. It's natural. As human beings, we have a tendency to prioritize what's before us over sometimes what is standing next to us. There are times where we look at what has to be done in order for the house to be there, for food to be on the table, to things that we need to, clothes we need to put on our kids, things, our car who may need new tires, or you fill in the blank. And we begin to prioritize some of these things over what's in front of us instead of what's standing right next to us. But as he says, the feelings eventually caught up with the commitment. When you choose to stand with, when you choose to stand up together, when you choose to confront together the challenges, eventually the feelings come back. Now, it's not part of my sermon, but I just want to add that it does help to do romantic things here and there along the way to help foster the feelings to come back. It's not just, I'm committed. Okay, let's go. So much so, it's the same for us in our relationship with God, that if all we do with him is tell us, okay, I'm committed to you, and off I go, but I don't do the things that ignited that passion for God from the first place, eventually we are going to grow apart. See, that's the difference between sacrifice and steadfast love. The sacrifice and commitment here in the context of this. Open your Bibles, please, to the book of Hosea. Now, you don't hear very many people preaching about the book of Hosea. Now, if you've never read the book of Hosea, it's found in the Old Testament right after the book of Daniel. I'm not going to read the entire book. It's a short book, only a few chapters, and you could, in one day, read it. There are 14 chapters in this book. But there's something that stands out of any other book here in this particular book. Hosea is a prophet. Hosea is somebody who is God's mouthpiece to his people. And he lived during the time of kings Hezekiah and Ahaz. And so this was early on into Israel's kingdoms. And here the Israelites were they started down this path of unholiness. And God tried several times. by sending prophets to tell them to come back. Listen, renew your commitment to me. Come back and restore this broken relationship. That he does something completely off the wall. And there are times when we as parents have to do things that are completely off the wall to get our kids' attention. Do you agree? Some of you can shake your head and are shaking your head like, yeah, I should have done more, or I could have done more. But look, do not worry. I am sure that you are not going to go as far as God did here. How do I know? Read with me, please. Verse 2. When the Lord began to speak with Hosea, the Lord said to Hosea, "Go, take yourself a wife of harlotry." Let me pause here for a minute. What did God do? What did he ask Hosea to do? I mean, did I read this right? Can I put this in simple, plain English? So we are all on the same page. He says, Hosea, go out and find yourself a prostitute. It changes things a little bit, doesn't it? It's like, wait, God, what? You want me to go find a wife where? You want me to take a wife that has done what? No, I don't think so. No, but God is telling him, listen, go take for your wife of harlotry and children of harlotry. Listen, this isn't somebody who was just in the practice of prostitution. This is somebody who had birthed children out of wedlock as a result of prostitution. Talking about a colorful family. He tells him to go do this, for the land has committed great harlotry by departing from the Lord. So God is equating what the people of Israel were doing in the same level that a harlot, that a prostitute would sell herself. Now, I'm not trying to downplay the worth of the individual who engaged in this form of profession. This isn't what God is trying to convey in this story. So much so that, as we will see later, that is quite the opposite. But he's telling him, listen, I want you to go do this because you are my mouthpiece. People recognize you. People know who you are. And I want you to go do this off-the-wall thing. And I want you to take for yourself a prostitute, make her your wife, and assimilate her kids into your family. And so he did. I mean, talk about how proud would your parents be if you showed up home with somebody of that caliber. I know that I haven't made the best of choices when I was a kid. And my brothers and sisters questioned, what were you thinking in dating so-and-so? I mean, we've all made our mistakes, let's be honest. But I'm almost sure, if not, I can not guarantee, that we have not done what Hosea has done. But God is he's equating their relationship to that type of relationship. One that is inappropriate. One that violates the sanctity of true love. And so he says, go take for yourself that wife and establish them. Eventually, he does that. They get married. They have kids. See, but the book of Hosea, as I just began to describe, isn't one of romance. It's actually one that illustrates the relationship between Israel at that time and God. But why did God tell Hosea to take for himself that wife? Weren't people still in a relationship with God? Weren't there individuals who still came and offered sacrifices? Now, granted, that sacrifices back then was a symbol of their commitment to the Creator. That sacrifices represented that they believed that someday a Messiah would come and rescue them. Wasn't that still being done? Weren't people still doing these things that were asked of them to do? See, God looked at that and he said, yes. And if you jump over to Hosea chapter 6, verse 6, it says, for I desire mercy, not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. There are times that our spiritual walk with God feels heavy and it feels empty. That our journey in our relationship with our Creator and that our prayers don't pass the ceiling. Perhaps it's because we attend church faithfully, but are still distant from God. Perhaps it's possible because we are preaching sermons. I'm preaching sermons, and then some of you who have engaged in that, but we neglect intimacy. Or is it possible that we are serving for the sake of responsibility rather than love? And so when we come to church, here we go. Got to get up early. Got to put on my best clothes. I got to put on, and we put on the mask of Christian and attend church because it's our duty, not because we love it. This is what God is telling Hosea to illustrate to his people in the worst possible manner that somebody could do. So yes, I am saying that if you feel empty, if you feel as if you come and you feel like you're a hypocrite, maybe because you have been prostituting yourself spiritually and not giving God the intimacy he desires. Obedience feels heavy when love is absent. Oh, I got my kids tell this to me all the time. Why do I have to clean my room? It is so heavy and burdensome for me to clean my room. I know where everything is. Yes, but I don't. Well, Dad, it's my room. I know. And who do you think bought this room for you? Go clean the dishes. No, I don't want to. It's too hard. It's a lot. But the fact of the matter is that when we have joy in our hearts and the love, these difficult things, they're not hard to do at all. Case in point, I'm going to pick on my daughter. Love you. There are times where I have asked her to do things that don't get accomplished. Facts. However, when she is motivated by either an activity that she knows is coming up, oh, things get done real quick. Because she loves what is coming. And it becomes important to her to be a part of that. There are times that we, just like a little teenager, we don't put the emphasis on our relationship with God, but we look at what comes outside of that and we put the value much higher in what's coming rather than the why I'm doing this. Perhaps that's why church feels hard sometimes. When my wife and I were dating, right off the bat, we were 5,000 miles apart. I've shared this story before. And it wasn't the proximity that gave me the energy to stay committed. It wasn't me being able to FaceTime her, because that wasn't invented then. You know, we would write letters. We would schedule our phone calls to be at a time where we could both speak uninterruptedly. And this is what made us stay faithful to each other. 5,000 miles apart. But covenant love says, I stay faithful even though I don't feel. This is the difference here that we're talking about. Covenant love is not the same thing as desire or lustful love. And this is what the children of Israel were going through in the time of Hosea. They were immersed in this concept of, I'm going to do what I think is right because this is what's been asked of me, not because I love it. See, David in Psalm 27:4, he says, one thing I have desired of the Lord, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, not when it feels good, not when it's in crisis, not temporarily, but every single day. That requires commitment. But yet, there's another word that I want to use in that's synonym to commitment. It's the word covenant. Covenantal relationships, covenantal love. One that somebody says, I am dedicated to you regardless. I'm for better or worse, right? That is the vow that we who have been married or are married have taken and say, I will stand with you for better or worse, in rich or poor, in sickness and in health, till death do what? Pulls us apart. It's a covenant. It's a love. It's a promise. It's a commitment. But I like the word covenant because when we look at this context, back in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve, they sinned, it was God who initiated the process. He went after them and he says, Adam, Eve, where are you? He went after them to rescue them. Little did they know that that was the intent. Because they were so afraid of what they had just committed that they hid themselves and sewed out of fig leaves coverings for their body. And so when they heard Jesus walking in the early morning, he says, Adam, Eve, where are you? Really? As if God didn't know where they were. God is searching us out each and every single day, giving us an opportunity to come out and say, I'm right here, and I've messed up. I've fallen short. But we get so focused on what we've done, what we have done wrong, that we look at the failed relationship and say, oh, this can't be restored. I need to back away. I need to back off. And the Israelites got to such a point that they began to continue. They backed off their intimate relationship with God for so long and for so much that they kept going the same rituals over and over and over, that it caused God to compare that kind of relationship with somebody who relates with a prostitute. I pray that that's not where you are this morning. I pray that your relationship with God isn't one that could be equal to the relationship of somebody who prostitutes themselves. But God, I love God. He says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. But in God's mercy, he instituted the sacrifice to point us in the direction of the one who would redeem us. In God's mercy, he paved the way for Adam and Eve to restore their relationship with God. See, David's longing was lifelong because this is the language of a covenant. He says, I'm committed in abundance and in famine. I am faithful in clarity and confusion, and I remain when emotions fluctuate. Let's go back to that verse. It says, one thing I have desired of the Lord, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord when it feels good. I'm going to dwell in the house of the Lord when I have done good. I'm going to dwell in the house of the Lord when I know things are going right for me. I'm going to dwell in the house of the Lord when all my bills have been paid. I'm going to dwell in the house of the Lord when my children obey me. Despite all these things, this is what David is saying. I am going to dwell regardless because I love the Lord. You're starting to get it. See, modern culture, when I was growing up, we would say everything is kind of relative. Now, modern culture says, I want it to be authentic. It's just a slight variation, but it's the same thing. See, if I'm not inspired, I shouldn't force it. The challenge that we have with these kinds of ideas is that it needs to feel right. It needs to feel good. It needs to be just right. But here, David is saying, I choose you. No, it's not some magical Jerry Maguire movie where we say, God, you complete me. No. God created me. I am complete because of him. And so when we look at this text of the illustration of Hosea, he eventually goes out and he marries. He has children. But you know what happens after that? The story doesn't end there. She goes out and goes back into harlotry. And God tells him, I want you to go and I want you to redeem her. In other words, he needed to go pay a price. He needed to buy her back so she could be his wife. This is the illustration God is giving, because the reality is we've all fallen short of the glory of God. We've all sinned. We've all have broken our spiritual New Year's resolution already. But God is saying, I have redeemed you already. Gomer goes back. And she goes back into that covenant relationship. Just like God sent his son, who died on the cross in order for us to renew our relationship with him. His sacrifice is the one who claims us and shows us that we are viewed as if we've never sinned. As if. What was interesting in the book of Jude, there he tells us that when Moses died, there was a battle between Satan and God over the body. Why? Because Moses was going to be taken to heaven. And and it was Satan's allegations that there was no sacrifice that had been given on his behalf yet. And God said, "The Lord rebuke you," taking the credit, if I can put it this way, putting his life on credit because he knew he was going to come and pay for it later on, thousands of years later. Your life has been bought. Your life has been paid for. Despite the amount of times that you and I fail in our relationship with God, because we choose to go and prostitute ourselves, spiritually speaking, we put a higher value on what we can see and what we liked and enjoyed before, and we forget that the ultimate price was paid already. A covenantal love is one that requires commitment, despite what you think you're feeling. So I want to ask you this. These are rhetorical questions. Are you offering sacrifices without mercy today? Are you playing that individual who does things just because on the outside it looks right? Are you engaging in activities without affection? Are you participating in worship without emotion? I have to be here. When God feels distant, do you lean into trust? Does your long distance relationship with him, does it survive that covenant of faithfulness? Does your obedience to him feel heavy and burdensome? Does it require you to take a deep breath and say, okay, here we go again? But when we look at that verse, one thing I have desired. I can tell you right now that when I first preached on this verse and I mentioned it this verse, and every time I preach on that verse, and I ask, what is your one desire of God? And I can guarantee you that if your answer is not, I want to be with God in heaven, or I want to be faithful to God for the rest of my life, or I want to be with God, I would be lying to you. All of our answers fall in those three areas, some way, shape, or form. But now, I'm asking for you to renew that covenant. Because despite how we live or have lived, we have prostituted ourselves. The beauty of this message is that God himself models it. He's done it for us. He did it with Adam and Eve, where he went out and pursued them and asked them where they were. When Gomer left, Hosea went and redeemed her. And when humanity sinned, Christ came. God loves. His love is constant. It doesn't come in sets or in waves. His love is a covenant relationship where he has bound himself so much so that he certified his covenant in blood, in sacrifice. He gave himself for you. He gave himself for me. Why wouldn't I want to follow him? Why wouldn't I choose to be with him? Let us respond in this manner. Lord, not just my rituals, you have my heart. Not just in my offerings, you have my loyalty. Not just in my feelings, you have my covenant. My prayer is that you choose your faithfulness over feelings. That as you renew your covenant with God, you will fall in love with Him over and over and over again. This morning, if you believe that you are in need to reestablish and reconnect with God again, yes, Pastor, didn't you do this appeal last time? Yeah. How many times have you sinned since last time? I'm not judging. The reality is, when God says that I desire mercy over sacrifice, is that He wants your heart, your true heart. He wants you to be in such a relationship with Him that He doesn't want you to feel as if His covenants are heavy. He wants you to be in a place where everything that you do comes from the happiness, that happy place in your heart. So when you're called to offer a prayer or to sing or to serve or to do whatever God has placed on your heart, you do it with joy. Not because you have to, but because you love Him. And that's the calling for this morning, is that you surrender your heart to God, that you may serve out of gladness, out of love, because you have bound yourself in a covenant agreement with Him. May God bless you.